Hello, family, if you're out there listening. So, me and Pastor Al just did another video on Facebook Live through Experiencing God Ministries. Go out there and check them out. We talked about the things about church hurt. And one of the things that we did not get to cover was the three women that we wanted to mention in the Bible. And also today is International Women's Day. So I wanted to give a shout out to all the women of the world that is out here making it, that is being a virtuous woman, that is being a great wife, that is being a great motivator, compassionate, loving, caring, disciplinary, giving your time, your heart. I just want you to know that you are always appreciated and much loved. So what I wanted to talk about today was about the woman with the issue of blood in Mark 25 through 34. And I'm going to read it because there's a lot of things in there that this woman was hurt from her affliction of 12 years. And now women, we know that having a menstrual cycle just ongoing can be very burdening at times. Having cramps can be very burdening at times. Can just the whole emotional roller coaster at times can make you act out of character, respond differently. You're crying, or you're upset, or you irritable. It's just a whole bunch of things that are going on. So for this lady to have an affliction for 12 years, and if you're anemic, you also know how that can be, just tired all the time, or you're thirsty. It's just so many things that can be going on, and everybody around her, even though it was some physicians at that time that tried to help her, they couldn't do it. And so she put her faith in God, and she heard that he was coming, and she mustered up everything that she could have. But what I'm going to do, if you haven't read the story about the woman with the issue of blood, I'm just going to go ahead and share it with you and my thoughts on it. So I'm going to start reading on at verse 25. I'm in Mark 5, verse 25 through 34. And it states, let's see, oh, this is the wrong, I'm so sorry. I'm about to start reading something else. Where are we at? And this is from the New King James Version Bible, not the King James Version Bible, not the original.
King James?
I'm alright. Now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, and had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. And I know a lot of women out there can relate to that. You're seeking and you're seeking and you're seeking help, and nobody seems to have anything for you, or that they give you something that is very temporary. When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in a crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made whole." Can we talk about faith? We're talking about faith right there. Immediately, the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of affliction. Amen. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself the power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" So, at this time, even though she was feeling renewed and rejoiced, and she knew everything was going on, I'm sure that she was kind of also scared and quivering, because she had touched the garment of Jesus' clothes. Let me finish reading this before I go into it. But his disciples said to him, "You see the multitude thronging you say, 'Who touched me?'" Like, bro, you tripping. It's a lot of people around here, and you worried about who touched me. But what makes it different from one person touching him to somebody that's having faith and believing him, it makes a total difference. That's just like you hugging, embracing somebody, at work. And then you come home and you embrace your spouse, you embrace your dog, you embrace your children. That's a whole different type of love that's being embraced. And he looked around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." Because she had faith. And faith is the one thing that we tend to try to put in other people. And as a woman, we give so much of ourselves that we also forget to take care of ourselves. So the woman with the issue of blood for 12 years had faith in saying, "Only if I can touch the garment of his clothes, I know I will be made whole." And that is a rejoicing story in itself. The second story I wanted to talk about was the Samaritan woman. So, as women, we, I don't know, everybody's story is different. And so, as far as the Samaritan woman and the things that she went through in life, and about how a lot of people kind of shunned her and her situation, what she was going through, but you never know what any woman might be going through because you're not walking in her shoes, nor what she had to put up with. So I'm going to take you to John 4:7-24. And I think I was already there. So John 4. And you have to remember also that Jesus and his disciples had been traveling for a long time. So for him to end up at this place at the well in Samaria, it had to be a calling. There was a reason why this lady had to be praying in faith. She had to be doing something that God was like, "Son, I need for you to travel through. You have to." Because even he said, "I have to," knowing he could have went around to another city and saved some time, but he said, "I must travel through Samaria." So I'm going to start at John 4, and it says, "But he needed to go through Samaria. So he came to the city of Samaria, which is called, Shachar, near the plot of the ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph." Sychar. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, having been wearied from his journey, sat thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour, meaning that it was later in the day. And usually time from the story, a lot of women will go to the well during the day. While it's cool, the sun isn't up and burning, but she decided to come later in the evening where she knew nobody else was going to be there at this time. So therefore, she didn't have to listen to the naysayers. She didn't have to worry about the glares and the stares and the whispering, for she was going during the 6th hour, which was later in the day. When a woman of Samaria came to draw water, Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. Then the woman of Samaria said to him, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." Jesus answered and said to her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have to ask him, and he would have given you living water." That in itself is a testimony alone, because there's so many, as we say, thirsty people out here, and they are thirsting for materialistic things. And every once in a while, you might get tested. God might send somebody your way, and you tend to shun them and be like, "Only if you knew this was your test, your living water, your testimony in helping somebody else." Let's follow on with the story. The woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where then do you get that living water?" Okay, so now she's curious. Not only is she curious because she paid attention, because he didn't say physical water that I'm drinking, I'm worried, but he said that living water, that water that you will thirst for forever, that's going to quench you during your life. "Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as well as his sons and his livestock?" So now she's questioning him. Jesus answered and said to her, whomever drinks of this water will thirst again. That word. But whomever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water, springing up in everlasting life. The woman said to him, Sir, give me this water that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw. Okay, so she was paying attention, but yet the metaphor still went over her head. The woman answered and said, The woman said to him, Sir, give me this water that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw. Jesus said to her, Go call your husband and come here. Okay. So this is where all the stares and all the whispering and everything else come from, because now he's calling her out on her own sin that she's living in. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, You have well said, I have no husband. For you have 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband, in that you truly speak. So husband being in that term and time in that culture is someone that you are married to. And a lot of time when you're married to that person, it's the person that you're sleeping with. So ladies, I need for you to understand that if you're sleeping with Derek, if you're sleeping with John, if you're sleeping with Travis, if you're sleeping with Jeremy, if you're sleeping with little Day down to sleep, guess what? You married to them. All of them. Because for ladies, we all know that it's an emotional attachment. Even though we be like, we hard, we know what we doing, I have a heart of cone, I'm just going to do what they've been doing all this time. It's an emotional attachment. You're married to all of those men that you lay down with every day. And sometimes, a lot of women that are not walking in Christ, that doesn't know or may not understand this, they just feel that it's casual. It's a casual sex. But yet it's still an emotional stronghold that you're holding on to. Right. So, the woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Okay, so now she's like, okay, this man that read me my rights, he understands what I'm going on. Therefore, he foresees things that no one else does. Our father worship on the mountain, and you Jews say in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship. Jesus said to her, Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. He's telling you at that point right now, guess what? You ain't worshiping nowhere. You are not worshiping nowhere. You worship that you do not know. We know what we worship for salvation is of the Jews. They worshiping for salvation. But the hour is coming, and now is when the true worshiper will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is speaking such to worship him. God is what?
God is a spirit.
God is a spirit. And he's telling her, this water, just give me a drink of water. Give me a drink of water, and I'm going to give you something, water that you would thirst for evermore. You will be worshiping forevermore. You don't need a place on top of a mountain that is that is set aside for worship. You can worship him wherever you want to go. But in this last line, I really want you to pay attention to this last verse. Well, one of the last verses in verse 24, when he is speaking, he said, God is spirit. And those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. And yes, in spirit and truth. And spirit and truth is not always about who can sing the loudest, who can sing, has that miraculous voice, who knows all the songs, who's doing all the ministry jobs at the church, who's doing this and that for the lady and first pastor, but it's always about obedience.
First pastor.